Hi, I'm Emily Meyer. My teammates and I produced the documentary Homelessness, Somebody Else's Life. We wanted to put a face to an issue that often seems far removed from daily life on a college campus. We found that we didn't have to travel far to do most of our research. We spoke with men and women staying in local shelters and living on the streets. We listened to their stories and learned how difficult it is for them to find permanent solutions to their housing problems. We were inspired by Tufts University student Muzammil Mustafa, who is currently working at the Somerville Homeless Coalition, helping men and women develop life skills so they can find ways to get off the streets. By producing our documentary, we saw how thin the line is between the working class and the homeless, and just how easily everything can be taken away. Poverty is everywhere. It's the homeless men and women struggling on the streets. It's the children left at home while their parents desperately search for jobs and food. Poverty doesn't stop on cold winter nights, and it doesn't stop in times of international crises. Today, in Massachusetts, there are approximately 28,000 people without permanent homes. While the line between the working poor and the homeless is getting thinner, thousands are living in fear that they are just a paycheck away from losing their home, their family, and their life. It can happen in an instant. It happens when you lose your health and can no longer work. It happens when you can't fight an addiction. It happens when you don't have a stable support system. It happens when you have a job, but the paycheck isn't enough to get by. It happens every day.
This is not my life, folks. This is somebody else's life that I got slipped into.
For the past 2 months, Phyllis has been staying at the Chapel Street Adult Shelter, located in the basement of the United Methodist Church, not even a mile away from Tufts University. Her son lives in California and put her in the shelter after she could no longer stay at a friend's home. 3 years ago, when Phyllis began to suffer a series of health problems, she lost her job in the education field and soon wasn't able to pay her medical bills and rent.
Yeah, your health kind of breaks down, your housing breaks down, your job breaks down. Everything breaks down. It's kind of a surprise and a shock.
But the problems homeless people face are deeper than just empty pockets. Muzammil Mustafa, a senior at Tufts University, has been working for the past 3 years to help homeless men and women find more than a warm meal and an empty bed. Through funding from the University College, Muz has helped set up a student-run office at the Somerville Homeless Coalition located in Davis Square. Since 2003, National Student Partnerships has decided to fully support the Somerville office. Muz focuses on teaching homeless individuals life skills so that they can get their lives together and get off the streets.
Most of my family lives in India, and if you go back to India, poverty is a huge problem there. And to me, it's always been eye-opening to kind of translate that into my work here. I mean, I think people have the tendency to believe that those sort of problems don't exist in America, and that if they do, they're so minimal that there's not much to be concerned about.
At the Somerville Homeless Coalition, Muz works with director Mark Alston Falansby to set up his student office. As director, Mark hopes to find long-term solutions for homeless people.
Part of what's happened in our society is that we're all so worried about our own situation that it's difficult to have empathy for others. If you see somebody, this old picture we have of the bag lady or this guy who's drunk on the street, it's easy to jump to conclusions. The problem is that how those people get there. It's like they were somebody's son or brother or father at some point, and something's happened to them in their lives to lead them all the way. I mean, you can't get any lower than being on the street.
Ken has lived in Massachusetts his whole life. While he doesn't want to spend his life on the streets, going into a shelter means giving up his kids, his pet dog and cat. His brother lives in government-funded housing, which gives Ken a place to shower, but it is illegal for his brother to have overnight guests.
I'm over 60% of my life on the streets, and once you've spent that long, it's I look at the world in a different way than you do, and well, I know that anybody out here can just end up losing everything that they have and be out here instantly, and it almost not makes me not want to try to build up again, because it can be taken away just too easily.
I think there's this misconception that there's a division in society between people who are prone to homelessness and the rest of the population. I think that people don't realize that there are a large percentage of Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck, and should they lose their job or should they have, another child or somehow their expenses increase, they could potentially fall through the cracks.
Ellie, who is 26, has fallen through the cracks. A high school dropout in the 90s, she moved to Silicon Valley and worked in graphic design, making up to $30 an hour. After losing her job, Ellie moved back to Massachusetts. Even though Ellie is currently waitressing, her paycheck is still not enough to rent an apartment.
The hardest thing I really think is when I do go to work and I get off work and I have to go and sit outside, and I just got off work. I'd like to go to my house and unwind, just never having any comfort.
Do we focus on addressing an immediate concern, which is where am I going to sleep tonight? Or do we focus on a larger issue, a more long-range issue of providing people with, say, education, or some of those resources I said that they were lacking, educational resources, job training, job skills, which will put them in a position so that they can get a job, maybe get more education, and get a place to live long term.
I'm 50 years old. I have experience doing more things than a lot of people know even exist for work. But the best type of job that I could probably get would be a minimum wage, and that's not even enough to get a room nowadays. So I'd barely be able to feed myself and struggle to live on the streets, and I wouldn't even be able to keep myself clean. And it's not even a reasonable option anymore.
Minimum wage jobs, like I mentioned before, don't really meet the cost of living in most communities. Yes, one could lose their job and then go find a job somewhere and make minimum wage, but essentially they'll be still facing many of the same problems they did before they had a job, in that they probably won't be able to meet all their needs.
The struggle to find housing on a minimum wage income makes temporary shelters and housing programs a necessity. But with government priorities shifting to the war in Iraq and other programs, this temporary solution has been accepted by society as the primary solution for housing.
Trying to find permanent housing, everyone here would like housing, but I hear there's something like a 1 to 2 year waiting period, which is pretty difficult. But right now, for me, being here is probably the best solution because it's warm and it's safe and there's food.
If you get evicted from your home and you can't get into some sort of subsidized housing program, or don't have somewhere else to stay with family members or friends in an area, then you have very few options about where you're going to sleep. And a lot of these you can go into these housing shelters that often have they allow you to stay for a certain period of time, and then you're turned back over to transitional housing programs. You're allowed to stay for 30 days or however long the different programs allow you to stay. And as soon as you find yourself in that situation, I think people begin to realize that they do need to find a job, or they do need to get some sort of subsidized assistance to help them get back on their feet.
Pete has been struggling for most of his life. He has had various addiction problems which have even led him to jail. His family members cannot help him because they too are barely getting by.
It's like right now I literally have no income. And I find that unless I'm drunk, dirty, beaten up, then people generally don't give me money. And it's like I don't want to beg for it. You know what I mean? I don't want to do it.
It's short-sighted, I think, to try to do one or the other. It really needs to be a little bit of both. We need temporary housing for that reason. We need the temporary shelter so that people have somewhere to go in a snowstorm or someone to just sleep at night. But they also need those skills. One of the things that poverty does is it takes away hope. And if you think about having a place to live, and just think about how important that is to our society, to any society. If you don't have a place to live, and you can't figure out how you're going to get that place, then what kind of hope do you have?
Muzz hopes to bring change to the homeless situation in Somerville. He works with the homeless 15 hours a week, teaching skills and working with community partners to develop the Somerville Human Service Network. 20 other tough students are now volunteering their time at the office as well.
There are ways for students to get involved, and a lot of times it's not so much that you have to be extremely knowledgeable about the community to help out. It's just that you have to be willing to put the time in. Simply, meeting with clients or meeting with low-income individuals and finding out what their needs are, finding out what their story is, and going from there, trying to help them apply for food stamps, helping them apply for jobs. In a very loose, structure, you'd be surprised how much you can help an individual.
You make decisions in life, and once you've made them, you can't change them, so why regret them? You may as well live your life as fully as you can.